Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Phil Gardner, who is, of course, Chief Commercial Officer at Ambassador. We can tell that because he's got full branding behind him today. Phil, it's so good to see you. It's the first time we've chatted since your appointment at the cruise line. Exciting time to join. But first of all, tell us why you moved there, because I think for some it may have seemed an unusual move, but I know you actually have a cruise background from various parts of your career. So just tell us about your lead up to this point.
I do, and thank you for having me on. I'm delighted to be able to speak to you today. You're right, I am branded up and proud of it. I'm about eight. It's either 8 or 10 weeks in now. I'm sort of losing track already, and I have to say I'm absolutely loving it. So if I come back to your question of why I made the move, you're right. I did work on cruise some years ago. When I've been out in the trade has been more recently, but actually prior to that, I worked in the cruise industry between around 2010 and 2015. And what I always liked about it is the way that you get to know your customers in cruise. It's unprecedented. It's not like any other product I've ever worked with. There's a level of passion that you get from cruise guests and the crew on board and all the people. Certainly in the office environment I'm in, there's so much passion for it. And I kind of knew that was going to be the case from before. It's such a well thought of industry in that regard. And I guess one of the reasons that I was interested in moving, it wasn't just about getting back into cruise. It was actually about Ambassador and what they were trying to do. I'm very pleased to have a investment partner in Yord, and also to our chair on the board, Gordon Wilson. You know, we've got a very close working relationship as an exec team under Christian with that community. And it's so refreshing for someone like myself who's come out of quite a big, corporate structure with large scale, to be able to sit in a room, agree some principles, agree a policy, make a decision, leave the room and get on with it. It's what I hoped it would be. And it's made things really straightforward. It's fantastic.
Brilliant. And of course, you mentioned Christian there, and you mentioned the financial backing. And of course, you have big ambitions, don't you? And you're currently one ship. We'll come on to talk about that in a second. But there are plans, aren't there, to really scale this line?
Absolutely. And that's one of the most attractive parts of the business, I think. It's the growth story. So, we launched in June last year with Ambience. We've already announced the incoming Ambition, which will join the fleet from sailings from next year. But there's definitely a growth story here. There isn't a fixed view of what the fleet size would be. That's very deliberate. But we are always on the lookout for new vessels and new ships. Obviously, they have to fit quite a strict criteria for what we're looking for. We'll make sure that they match our customer demographic. But it's absolutely a growth story. And we've got around half the business selling through the trade and with travel agents. That there aren't significant plans to change our distribution network. That's not the intention at all. There's a growth story here for all the channels, and I think that's good news for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, look, you mentioned Ambience and obviously Ambition to come. By the way, you're going to have to think of lots of names beginning with A, aren't you?
Yeah, I know. We're already on that.
All right. Fair enough. But look, Ambience was due to arrive, wasn't she, on the 5th, I think, for a trade event for her maiden voyage on the 6th out to Hamburg. Unfortunately, you had to cancel that. I know we've talked about it, but just explain to us. It was due to supply chain issues, you said, which were exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. So what stage was she at? What was missing? What still needed doing? Why was she delayed? 'Cause it was just 2 weeks, but it was obviously necessary.
Yeah, and it's always disappointing when this kind of thing happens. And as you might imagine, we'd tried lots of things to avoid it, but there does become a point where actually, from a planning perspective, you have a responsibility to let people know that it's looking unlikely, and ultimately to confirm it one way or the other. So you're right, there were some supply chain issues. There was a lot of external factors influencing it. It's fair to acknowledge that one of the key ones was a shortage of marine gas oil, i.e. fuel. in Croatia, and that did cause us some problems. That is a direct impact of all the external factors that we're all seeing at the moment.
Are you literally to fuel the ship to actually get her over to the UK? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. There's challenges. Anyone working in travel right now, whether it's cruise, aviation, automotive, this is a very common theme. That clearly there's a shortage of different supply directly affecting that, and so we've had to move quite a few things, change a few plans. And to be honest with you, we're delighted to be able to do it with only a 2-week delay. There are many others that will have to suffer far worse than that. And one thing which I'm actually really pleased about is that the program change that we orchestrated over that 2-week delay, I have to say, has been one of the most successful ones I've ever been involved in. And when you come from a tour operator, you're kind of used to doing things like that. But we've had a fantastic bit of feedback from our guests. Obviously, we can't satisfy everybody. Unfortunately, there are date changes. Some people can't work with that. But we've retained the vast majority of all of our guests that were due to sail with us. Some have moved cruises. Some have transferred to alternative sailings. Some have gone along with the date change. But it comes back to what I was saying earlier about being able to make quick decisions. It was like a 5-second conversation to say we had to protect agent commission. We made that decision real early on. And as soon as we did the call outs, we were keen to be able to support our trade partners wherever we could with any communication that they had to go through. It's not to say everything was perfect, it rarely is, but if I look at what we've achieved overall and the amount of retention we've had, I think we can look quite favourably on making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned there how important the trade were to your sales. What proportion of the bookings on those first 2 Norwegian fjord sailings were through the trade, Phil?
So on the first ones, it's around half and half. On the program overall, it's actually higher than that. So well over 50% of our bookings are into the trade. Critically important channel for us. The reason that I think it's probably a bit lower on the first sailings is simply the demand, for an inaugural voyage. But actually on the program overall, it's critically important. And I quite often get asked, especially because of my background, I quite often get asked about distribution channels and direct versus trade, and actually, there's a lot of trade-friendly policies here, and it just wouldn't make any sense to change that sense of trade friendliness. It's a really important part of what we do. We've got a dedicated trade function that is growing. So because we've got the second ship Ambition coming in next year, we've obviously got more capacity, and the trade team is set to grow with that. That's something we're working through the budget for right now. We've got a real focus on training. We're really keen for people to experience the product. There's 10 different sailings that you can see on the website where we've got visit opportunities for our trade partners. We've got a really strong groups function. And actually on that one, there's a lot of flexibility here. Again, not in the shackles of this sort of, broader, large scale operation. If somebody wants to look at something in a certain way and has a different angle from our trade partner community, and they ask us about something, we'll get back to them real quick. We're able to make decisions very quickly with only a handful of people. There's really not a lot of red tape. So I'd encourage anybody who's interested in that to contact us, because I think you'll find that we're really flexible.
All right, I'm sure they will. And Phil, you just mentioned there about protecting agent commissions. And obviously when we did stories about the launch, and I chatted to Christian a number of times, particularly with the history of what happened with CMV, Christian was very clear that he wanted to put in place a trust model to protect customer monies and to make sure that both customers could be repaid and agent commissions would be protected. Now, you've just mentioned that, so that has happened. I know it's only been 2 cancelled sailings, but you've obviously been able to put that, I guess, to test that. Has that worked straight away?
Yeah, we have been able to test it, and actually a really good sort of proof point, if you like, of that is our ability to refund within the 14 days, which obviously a lot of other operators struggled with last year and during the pandemic. We've had a scenario where we've been able to create a connection between our merchant and the trust, which means that we're able to turn around that refund particularly quickly. And that also means that it even allows us time to be able to communicate back to trade partners, because clearly if a guest decides they want to cancel, they don't always have sight of what the alternatives to that are. And our trade partners will want to contact their own customer database for obvious reasons to do exactly that. And we've been able to help that journey a little bit for a good couple of days prior to, the 14-day payback. So it's really worked very well, actually.
Okay, good stuff. All right, lots I want to ask you about, and we will get on to Ambience because I know that's very exciting and we're all looking forward to seeing her next week. But before we do, just to pick up a little bit more on the trade sales thing, you've obviously you say the team is growing. Just to remind us who you've got in the team, because Chris Coates is well known, but he's taking a bit of a step back. Yeah. You've come in and you're looking to then grow the team, are you? And are you going to sort of change the way you work with the trade? Are you going to bring in stuff? I know you're not going to change it dramatically because they work really well for you, but are you thinking of sort of new initiatives or anything for the trade?
I think the key word really is support. We need to make sure we're providing the right level of support. We are fortunate enough to have a lot of experience in the team. There's a lot of years of experience. The team is headed up by Lisa Jacobs, who is our head of trade sales. She's very well known amongst your audience, I'm sure. And she's supported by a team which, as I say, have a lot of experience, both in Ambassador, but also elsewhere in the industry. And in terms of things that we're doing moving forward, I mean, it's a very live conversation, this, so I can't say too much about the actual structure because we haven't finished building it yet, but there are plans to grow it in line with the growth in volume. And in terms of what we do with the trade, I think the most important thing is listening. You hear a lot of people talking about what they're going to do, but personally, I've only been with the business a couple of months now, and I'm really keen to get out and talk to people and hear what works for them, rather than trying to decide the answer to that without having engaged with those people directly. So the team obviously have a good sense of it. I need to build that over the coming weeks, and then I'm looking forward to being able to engage with our trade partners as much as possible to ensure that whatever we do, it's of a very high level of support that will match the service that guests experience on board.
Okay. How hard is it when you're up against all these lines that are building brand new ships?
Yeah.
Do people get as excited when it's a refitted ship? Because you're in the business of buying older ships and refitting them to, an Ambassador standard and bringing out, a whole new type of concept. But you've got all these other people building brand new ones. Do agents get as excited?
Absolutely. I think it's a different part of the market. And so I'll tell you what always excites people, no matter where you're based in travel, in my mind, and that's cornering a market where a fantastic guest experience can be provided and money can be made, right? Everybody enjoys that. And so this is definitely a captive area of the market. You think about what Ambassador represents, and again, this is one of the reasons that brought me to the business. This is a authentically British experience. There are naming conventions on the ship that will really resonate with people. We have like a centre court atrium, we have a Purple Turtle pub, we have a bar called SW19, we have a buffet area called Borough Market. It's a very British experience. And also because the ships are slightly smaller, what you tend to get is less of a sense of crowding. These aren't megaton ships. What they are instead is a more intimate experience, a more traditional cruising experience. And the market for this is really strong. And if you were talking about some of the itineraries, for example, there's an awful lot that is around Britain, which is done particularly well, which I think because of COVID is unsurprising. This is a no-fly cruise line at a time where flying is still quite a painful experience. All the news coming out about the queues at the airports and everything over the last couple of weeks, it's really, really tough on people. And we were very fortunate not to suffer that. What we have is a very slick process, which has been agreed at the Port of Tilbury. We look forward to beginning that next week. And I think that sort of no-fly British element of what we do, and they're two really key selling points that I know people are going to get behind.
Yeah, I know Christian did say it might not remain no-fly forever when you bring more ships on, but certainly that's the plan, is it, for the first two?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can never say never, because what you don't want to do is damage any growth that you might get if you did introduce fly crews. But certainly on the first two ships, as you say, we're not looking to do that. There are some quite exciting longer itineraries which we're looking to launch, which will provide some sectors. But you know, we're not a packaging agent. We haven't set up with you know, a license to work in that manner. What we'd rather do is work with our trade partners to do that. So there's an element of breaking up some of the longer cruises, which some agent partners may be interested in.
So they might put together their own fly
exactly.
cruise packages with you, just taking the net cruise fare from you guys.
That's right, yeah. But I think one of the key differences for us is that our priority has been ex-UK. We've obviously focused Ambience on ex-Tilbury. But actually what you'll see with Ambition when we launch in the next few weeks is a lot of regional departures as well.
Brilliant.
So as you make your way around the country, you sort of come out of Tilbury and then we'll have calling points at Newcastle, Dundee, Belfast, Liverpool, Bristol and Falmouth. So you literally go all the way around, which in terms of, you know, our trade support and the regional presence that we can bring to our trade partners, I think it's really positive.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Well, look, you've whet our appetites a bit with Ambiance, talking about the bar and the centre court and, you know, SW19, etc. But and I know you haven't been on board yet, and you will do later this week, and we're all going to be on board if you're lucky enough to be invited for the celebrations that are taking place next Tuesday. But give us an idea then of the feel, because people will know some of the executives from Ambassador from the CMV days. Will the ship look like a CMV ship, or has she got an Ambassador, kind of a new fresh look to her that we wouldn't necessarily recognize?
Yeah, it's definitely a difference with Ambassador. This is all about the new brand, and the way that we've captured this is to refer to it as premium value, which has really worked well for us. It's not like a sort of budget end of the market at all. What it is instead is a big step up, and you know, some of our database who sailed with other brands before, I think they'll definitely recognize this as something that's very different. It'll have a completely new feel to it. It's definitely an upgrade in terms of what they will see and feel. There's a difference between the two ships. So Ambience is quite a large ship in terms of the space to guest ratio. So a good example of that is probably cabin size. You know, the cabin size is a little under 17 square meters, which if you compare that to a lot of the newer ships, that's quite a bit bigger. A lot of the public areas feel very spacious. And again, if you then compare that to Ambition, which joins us next year, you know, very different feel, and a slightly smaller ship. So where we'd probably expect around 1,400 guests on Ambience, Ambition is more like 1,200. There was significant refurbishment done on it prior to the purchase and joining the Ambassador fleet. And there's more work designed there as well. So I think what you'll find in time is that we've got two different ships with two different fields, both of which we know will appeal to our demographic, and I think together provide a fantastic product offering.
Yeah. And will Ambition then offer totally different itineraries, or have you got so much demand it will be similar? Because I know you're doing Baltic, Greenland, fjords, Iceland, then
That's
out
right.
to Canaries, Cuba. Help me out here. What else?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's a little of both. One of the things I really noticed when I joined Ambassador versus other places I've been before is that there is a wide variety of itineraries because of the amount of freedom. You know, there's no airline, there's no hook on to flying, and so it's a little bit the world's your oyster, really. So you'll get anything from a round Britain cruise to a Fjordland cruise, to there's an Arctic voyage that we've got coming up, which is a 21-nighter. There's a very popular cruise out to Cuba. You know, this is all with the existing program. And then when Ambition joins, to directly answer your question, it'll be a little of both. So there will be some overlap, but they'll also have some distinction as well. And there's some real far and wide sort of explorer opportunities that we're going to be offering. And you'll have to watch the space on that one, I'm afraid, because we haven't yet published the launch, but it's about to come.
I know you haven't, but when is that going to be? Sometime in April or May, when do you
It's very imminent. I'm sorry that I can't give you the exact date, only because it's commercially sensitive and you're doing your best to catch me on the hop, but I can't share it yet, but it's very, very soon.
Okay, all right. Well, we will look forward to that. Just finally, you mentioned, I think right at the start, we've just touched on trading and just how things are going. Obviously, you launched last June. It's been a difficult time. We had Omicron in the middle of it, but how have things gone? How have the trade got behind you? And, clearly, if you're looking at more ships, you've got demand there. But just give me an idea of, how trading is going, any trends that you're seeing within that.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful for me because I've had the rather lovely opportunity of joining a business that had a fantastic start. So together with, Chris and the team, there was a sales runaway at launch where literally 50% of the program was sold in the first 3 months. So, that I've got big shoes to fill in that sense. But I think that what we've seen more recently, it's a market that is literally up and down like a yo-yo. And whilst I've seen that before in my career, I don't know that I've seen it quite as up and down as this. What I think is perhaps the most positive thing from the last couple of weeks is that there are some itineraries that have been really consistent for us. So mainly the round Britain type itineraries. They've done ever so well ever since launch. More recently, and this is quite unusual in Lates, what you would normally expect is a sort of race to the bottom with a number of cruise lines with lots left to sell on low price short sailings. I'm very pleased to see that we're able to buck that trend a little bit. I think focusing on what our brand is about has worked well, and what that's meant is that we had a very good turnaround in trading, for example, last week on the Arctic voyage, which is only a couple of months away. It's 21 nights long. We had some really good impetus on that. We've got continued strength on Cuba, and we've got some further out sailings, which are longer. They're sort of 30 nights plus, and we're starting to get some interest in those, and that's fantastic to see. We still have relevance, obviously, on some of the shorter stuff, but we perhaps don't need to race to the bottom on price as much as others because A, we're a new brand that people are definitely backing, and B, it's just not something that we really want to do. As a new brand, we want to make sure that we're offering value. And so, trashing a cruise holiday with low prices that you previously sold at a different level is not something we want to get involved in.
No. And are you finding that people are spending a bit more? I know they're not on board yet to look at onboard spend, but are you finding that people have perhaps upgraded to a higher category of cabin? Are they going for longer? Are they taking more people with them? We're finding that those kind of trends are finding that.
We are absolutely, because the best measure of that for us is we look closely at revenue per day. That's quite a common metric in cruise, and our revenue per day is far in excess of what we ever expected it to be, which is again fantastic to see. Our ability to upgrade is actually really strong. One of the best selling points I think of our business, which also helps the trade, is probably the best set of contact center statistics I've ever seen in my career. Even through the program change, the wait times are consistently below 1 or 2 minutes on average. And I've come from environments where there's waiting times of hours, in big scale businesses. So that's been a real pleasure, actually. And that includes the trade line. So that's been really positive. And I just think all of these things are going to help us to make sure that not only are we providing a great product, but we've got a great service to go with it. I think that's really relevant, perhaps more now than it ever was before COVID.
Oh yeah. I keep saying to people, our customers becoming more demanding, or are they just so grateful to get away, having not been around away for 2 years? Probably be a bit of both. All right. So finally, Phil, tell us, what have we got in store? Have you got a big celebration for Tuesday night when the ship comes in and launches? I mean, we've got a masquerade ball, which I thought was interesting. We've been wearing masks for 2 years, and you're going to make us wear a mask, and now one on our eyes as well.
Yeah, so all of our attendees are very welcome to only wear it across the eyes, Lucy. It's quite a serious difference to what you've been going through with the pandemic. I think it's going to be a fantastic event next week. We've got a lot of people attending. There's a huge amount of interest in this. We're delighted we've been able to retain most of that, given we had to do the date change. That was quite a big consideration. But we've got a lot all coming together on the evening of the 19th. And one of the key things about our new product is actually the entertainment. It's a real step up versus perhaps what people might expect. And I think it's one of the best selling points of our brand and our product. There'll definitely be some opportunity to see that next Tuesday. The other thing is, let's not forget, having a lot of people from the trade together under one roof doesn't happen as often as we are used to from a couple of years ago. So it'll be a brilliant chance to just catch up with everybody. We're looking forward to showing people a good time, which I'm sure will happen. And we can't wait for people to come and experience the product. We think it'll be a blast.
Well, I cannot wait to come on board and to see all of those things that you've talked about, Phil. We do wish you all the best for that evening, but of course, the very next day when she finally embarks on her maiden voyage. And we wish you all the best for Ambience and, of course, Ambition and whatever else is to come. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Lucy.